Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
A little bit like this. And it's like my gorgeous vocal cords. You're attracted to me, aren't I a looker? I'm a looker. I was a hoover. So yeah, she has to. You have to have her like that.
Welcome to the Comedians in Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Vanda Mikoloski. Vanda, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Hi. It's good to be here. And I mean like a relief to be here. My name's Vanda. Um, I've been a stand-up comic since the early 80s. I started out in New York City and experienced the fruits of the comedy boom, where we could
Ah,
do every major city had three comedy clubs, and we could do stand-up and sharpen our sets at like 8 sets a week and get paid for it. And that was the cool thing. And since then, I have grown old. I went through you know, drug and alcohol addiction. Who didn't, right?
kind
And
of a relief, right?
yeah. And finally, here I am, 66 years old, basically a demonstration of what it is to be an awesome older person who writes books and stays creative and does yoga and I mean, sometimes I wish I had a boyfriend, but that other than that, I'm pretty damn happy for an old lady.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, only sometimes, maybe an hour a day, but any more than that, it's excessive, right?
Yeah, right. Oh,
All
wait a
right.
minute. Oops.
Ah, there we
Oops.
go.
Oops.
There we
Woo!
go.
Woo! This is me tap dancing for daddy. Well, I'll be shamelessly plugging that inappropriately
Absolutely. And I'll get that link up there so it pops up right now.
as
So
my
that way
book.
people can click on it. So, Vanda, you ready to get started?
Sure.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build, and we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me.
All right. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So, Vanda, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
Know about that. You know what? Because you're asking a stand-up comic. Stand-up
Yeah.
comedy is precise. It's an
Mhm.
unforgiving art form where you've been in the trenches out there sharpening and shaping material. I wouldn't say jokes, I would say stories about your life, monology, you know, and you're trying
Monology?
monology. I'm a monologist. We do monologues about
Okay.
our lives, and about life. And some of us are, I don't know what, like observationalists, like Jerry Seinfeld. Have you ever noticed the hand thing for the to dry your hands is right where the water runs down, like that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And some of us are a little bit more slit your wrists and bleed comedians.
Mm.
Anyway, let me get back to your question. Comics to me are stand-up comics. And for the longest, but now I understand the young children. Everyone's a young child to me. The younger generation has
Hmm.
funny people who haven't paid those dues online, and they're called comedians, right? Because they don't do stand up per
Right.
se. They aren't comics, but they're funny and they've written some stuff and they have some punchlines in there, but it's not set up punchline tagline. act out, set up punch. It's not like they've shaped that over time at comedy clubs, screwing up, having horrible shows with a bunch of drunks in the middle of the night. That's its own precious thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But people used to say to me, "Oh, you're a comedian." Which they would use interchangeably, right? Whoopi, I know Whoopi Goldberg. She's a comedian, and I'm like, well, yeah, she's a comedian, but she's not a comic. She never did straight stand up. I don't know. I'm a little snotty, but then you find Keenan. Hang on. Then you find
Yeah.
in the corporate world. I had a corporate job once. That was my only job, and I met this guy, this little Japanese guy named Junichi. Loved this guy. He never occurred as funny once until like 3 years into I knew him. And then he would all of a sudden came out with something hysterically funny in an elevator. We were going to another floor and he said, "This Hotel 700, they changed it, Vanda, to Hotel 900 or something like that." It was hysterically funny to me in the moment. Anyway, so
Was he trying to be funny?
yeah, he was. He was being
Okay.
dry and glib and weirdly Japanese about it. I don't know, something happened where he just I was shocked. I didn't know that he was a funny human. But now, would he be a comedian or a comic? You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Well, if
know.
he just attend, so yeah, I mean, obviously, when we have the virtual world, like where the TikTok stars are, I don't even know if I call them comedians either, because it's like a whole other realm. But the reason why I even started the podcast is because doing stand up, I was told that there is a difference between a comic and a comedian, and it wasn't clear to me, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm parsing it out here, is because it's two sides of the same coin, and I think it's perfect for any conversation about comedy, because you
Yeah.
can't get a straight answer.
Well, the thing is about language is that it's based on consensus agreement, right? So it's all made up. It's made up. Some guy made it up, right? This
Right.
means this and this means this. But now we call it this. And now I was looking the other day at it was some slang because I'm a foster mother. I have a young man in my charge. He may come in and say hello, maybe in the middle of the show.
Okay.
But he is he's African American, and he has a whole linguistic thing that he does, and
Hmm.
I'm like,
Is that a
okay,
politically
Beady, beady,
correct
beady.
way of saying something? A
uh,
linguistic thing? I mean, are we talking about a universal linguistic thing?
well, it's a given that in dictionaries, slang becomes words over time, right? Like
Of
you look up
yes.
stuff like conversating. I'm going to conversate. That's now in the dictionary, I think. You
Yeah,
know,
it has grammatical rules that match English, right?
Yeah, but it used to not be in the dictionary. It,
No,
it used to be converse,
right.
not conversate. But someone was trying to sound smarter and add another syllable, and they said conversate, and it caught on. And before long, it is now,
It's like the
according
past
to the,
participle, no? Am I see that's what I'm sorry. It's a past participle, right? You have a conversation, that could be past, present, or future.
yeah.
I'm getting really nerdy about this. I'm just trying to write a joke. It doesn't, yeah, we'll work on
Oh, try. I love it.
that.
You're all quantum physicsing me.
A little bit, a little bit. So Vanda, are you ready for the first question?
I am.
Okay. So it's about the role of persona in comedy. So how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
That depends on the comics. Some people and their intention, right? Some people go up there to hide. They've developed, in the it's called ontology, the study of being a human being. In the genesis of your personality, why one would become funny sometimes is to overcompensate for a perceived lack. Like
Mm,
my sister's a pretty one, or my sister's a pretty one, I'll be the funny one, or daddy's drunk, I don't want him to get upset, so I'm going to be funny. Why do you develop a funny personality? Uh,
mm-hmm.
because it's oftentimes overcompensating for something that you think is a lack. So you're trying to get, it's a winning formula. It's a strategy, right? It's something like that. And what was the question again? I just lost it.
No, yeah. So the idea of comedian's voice as being a character versus the real self, which you are addressing.
Yeah, and then it's also by there's this arc of young comedian to older comedian too. When I was a
Hmm.
young comedian, my voice on stage was all about me. It was all, aren't I funny? Aren't I charming? Aren't I amazing? Look at me. And it was more about giving and getting something and being
Hmm.
dazzling than it was about actually offering something, contributing something. So there's the giving
Right.
in the arc of a comedian's career. A young comedian is trying to be a rock star, trying to get laid, and then trying to get rich and famous, right? And then as he refines himself or herself, um, he thinks maybe more about what do I have to offer? What do I have to contribute? What am I
Or
really
legacy.
saying? What's in my heart? What's my mission on planet Earth? Why am I here? And what do
Hmm.
I want to leave people with? So, who are you in relationship to the audience? And when you do that work, and it's work, you have to think it through. You have to keep, and it's not like one and done. You keep designing it. By design, we're brilliant. By default, we're cute little, clowns. Some of them are really good, but the voice is like the how do you ask the question is a little weird because it depends on your intention. Some
Hmm.
people don't care at all about giving something. They really do want to be, look at me, and some of them are great like that, I don't know. Is that
No,
is that
absolutely. I totally agree with you. I see it as, you start, your ego is not developed, or you only have an ego. You haven't developed the other aspects. And so over time, especially when you're on stage, because that experience is unlike anything else in the world ever.
Mhm,
Right. And so
mhm.
you learn so much about yourself, or at least you should. I mean, I don't see how you can't, no matter what your level of intelligence is, you will
Right?
learn something about
It
yourself.
has integrity, right? Either they laugh or they
Yes.
don't, and it's on you. Yeah.
Exactly, and everything in between, right? Because people may not laugh at your jokes even though they think it's funny, right? That's just your style. There's a lot of reasons,
Right.
a lot of things
Right.
going on. If it's a slow burn or intellectual and all that. So, all right. So,
Yeah.
how about punching up versus punching down? So, where do comics versus comedians subscribe to this? And let me put it in some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Well, Keenan, your question, which I read before I was on here, arose in me a curiosity. It evoked from within my being, from deep within my being, a curiosity about the court jester. And I did a deep dive on court jesters and kings and protocol between them. And you, and a few of them were killed because
Hmm.
it was a delicate, they had some permission to diss the king, and it's a delicate, not too much, don't diss too much, right?
Right.
It's like calling your best friend an asshole, you know what I mean? Like you love him, you're being an asshole, but it's a joke,
Right.
that they had that kind of a relationship, but you can only take that so far, right? So
That's right. You can't show a picture of infidelity to his wife. That'll go,
yeah,
that's
exactly. Like that would not work. So, but what was the first part of that?
no,
Before you
you
get to the
definitely
context?
you did you definitely got it. But let me put it this way: is criticizing dead people
Yeah.
considered punching down?
Well, it depends. Here's the thing, Keenan. I don't want to live my life not upsetting people. I don't want to live my
Right.
life upsetting people or not upsetting them. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
My if and there are social trends where people get precious, and I think for me what I've chosen, this isn't every comedian, my job is to take the piss out of the significance of all that, the preciousness. When the Yoga Journal hired me once, it's a yoga magazine, and yoga people can be pretty precious about how sacrosanct it all is over there in woo woo world, the angel and
Okay. So,
dolphin crowd.
what can you do to damage their space? Like, what in yoga is there? So, like,
Well,
don't never do this or that, or
it's one of my intentions to take the tablecloth out from under their personal significance anything
Okay.
that's become sacrosanct. That's my job. That's a job of my holy fool right here. So what I can do is I can say things like, uh, I'm not very spiritual. I don't have any food allergies and stuff like that.
Sure.
Sometimes I go to raw food restaurants, bring the food home and cook it. It's better
Mm.
that way. Stuff like that. Like, or I made a joke about how I don't drink herbal tea. They all drink herbal tea, right? They don't caffeinate. I drink I drink coffee. I do drink the fair trade, shade grown, free range, dolphin friendly, farmed by female farmers, financed with micro loans. Oh, amputee female farmers. Those girls work so hard picking the beans because they're free range beans. They have to chase them with their little amputee legs and arms. And, like,
Yeah.
and then I said, have I gone too far? Oh, you're yoga people. You have to be always, like proper. But you can make fun of amputees. Stop
Yeah,
doing that.
I could see that yoga people could perhaps be very narcissistic because of the physicality, the pure physicality of it, and miss the whole other aspect. Is that something you
I'm a yoga
experienced?
teacher. I toured with
Right.
a band called the Dixie Chicks. Not everybody remembers them, but I was their yoga teacher on tour. And
Uh-huh.
and I told them you can get anything from a nice ass to enlightenment doing yoga. Anything, it's your intention. It's on you. You know what I mean? It's on you. And I have a nice ass, and I won't say I'm enlightened, but you know, I got some
Well,
years on.
it's still holding up. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. So
All
did
right.
that answer that question thoroughly enough?
There's really no actual answers to these questions, but you got as close as anyone else has. So,
That's
absolutely.
awesome. Yeah.
All right. So, how about cultural translation of comedy? So, how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Oh, that's a good question. I did comedy in London and I did
Mhm.
stand up all throughout Canada. So those are the only two other countries that I've worked in. And depends on how human and universal your stuff is. Like
Mhm.
for me, if you keep talking about core feeling stuff, it'll be pretty universal. Maybe the Japanese crowd that you go to do comedy in front of will be a little bit more because you know there, there's something a little more shy, at least publicly, about
Absolutely.
Japanese culture. And if I go into a black club and work there, it will be like like it'll be a little bit more rip roaring sometimes because authenticity is welcome. And with the black community's flagship comedian Richard Pryor, who was the first renegade after the Bill Cosby, all that
Sure.
button down, Bob Hope, Catskills, button down stuff. And he came out of the universe. He was first trying to do that acceptable stuff, and then he came out and he was rip roaring. So within our own country, we have cultures that are different, and will accept different, and will vibe with different. But here's the thing: I'm a writer too, as you know.
Yeah.
I'm a writer too, and there's the book, folks. And they say that the universal is in the specific. So the more I access my own humanity, it allows others access to theirs, regardless of where they are. And if you're willing to be that vulnerable and take those risks and uh, have the embarrassing come out, if I find something embarrassing, I'm like so happy. It doesn't always arise as a premise. I'm like,
Mhm.
could that be a premise? Like, okay, for example, am I going off topic too much? Okay.
No, no, you're going to say, like, how do you know if something's embarrassing without feeling embarrassed yet?
Well, I know something's embarrassing if I don't want to say it,
Okay.
if I don't want to at first, right? For example, I was dating a guy in LA. I lived in Venice Beach. Where do you live?
Around LA, moving around.
Proud to Yeah, I lived in Venice Beach for a long time. I met a guy I was dating, and on our third date, he said to me, I really like you, and I have a question I'm afraid to ask. I go, honey, I'm an open book. I mean, really, can't you tell? I'm like, I'm endeavoring to be everything on the table, every consideration. On our third date, he said, okay, are you a man? And I'm like, is that a deal breaker for you? I'm like,
Right.
what am I or was I? What do you really mean? No, but it was, and I was offended. I was actually offended. I didn't know if I was more offended because he saw me as that unfeminine or as that deceptive. Like, yeah, if I
Hmm.
was a man, I would have told you if I had a penis or used to have a penis, or I would tell you that, on the by the third date. And why are you kissing me anyway if you don't know?
He's waiting to find out. He's like, I need to
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
But anyway, it was a year later. I wrote a story about that. Like I wrote a story about it, an essay. But it was a year later that I considered that that might be a good stand-up bit. And
Hmm.
because I didn't want to, because I was embarrassed that
Right.
I'm too masculine or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm too much. And then I got, that's the good stuff. If it's hard to say, if it
Yeah.
takes something, some courage,
Yeah.
if it takes some courage, it's like so much juicier than just
Yeah.
going up and talking about what a public bathroom looks like. Jerry Seinfeld, God bless him, he's a great technician,
Mm.
but he's a house painter. He's not an artist. I mean, he's artful
He's
at
pro-
what he does, but
Would you at
there's
least say he's a prolific house painter? I mean, it's almost like pop
prolific.
art.
He's painted
Right.
many houses, but you don't know who he is. You don't get a sense of his soul. I think what I love, I was Sam Kinnison's buddy, right? We used to hang out every time I went to LA and do gobs of cocaine. I think it's still up there from that day. Um, uh, so remember Sam Kinison? He's what I call a slit your wrists and bleed kind of guy, where he
Hmm.
wanted to get to the funky, emotional, raw truth, to access his humanity so that other people could access theirs, to tell the truth, to take a risk. That's why
Yeah.
people loved him. Yeah. And
Yep.
I only
Definitely.
slept with him once. So that
Oh.
that's that's the extent of the gossip for you and your people over there. We
Well, it
were
sounds like
high.
that's all you need is only once, then you know. And then he knows. And he can tell everyone. He's like, no, she is a woman.
Right, exactly.
All right, very important question. Advertising and self promotion. So, who advertises themselves more, the comic or the comedian or the magician?
You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Everybody's approach to marketing and advertising is different, isn't it? Uh, that's a tough question. I don't know what you mean by advertise yourself. Do you mean like in terms of when you walk into a room to be all on broadcast mode, or
I mean,
do you
that's that in the physical space that is an aspect.
or do you
Maybe you're
mean
going,
pimping your wares to the world?
yeah, that's another. I mean, more traditional is promoting your book. Yeah, that would definitely be.
Yeah. Well, I was a comic who didn't really need to market herself because I knew so many people, had so many gigs. Um, we just found gigs,
Right.
and so I don't know. I don't know.
Well, then would you say that self-promotion is seen as selling out or is it necessary for survival?
I have a very great metaphor for you. There is, if you walk into a mall, right? And you walk into one of those stores
Hmm.
and you have two separate salespeople, right? One of them, their intention is to sell you a pair of shoes. The
Hmm.
other one, their intention is to be of service to you. You're going to have two different experiences, even if they have the same exact script and saying the
Hmm.
same exact things. It's their intention, it's who they're
Right.
being. If you're being an asshole and trying to get over and trying to, like, the more agenda, the less connection. All the good stuff in life happens in connecting with other humans. And certainly on stage, you're sharing, you're connecting. The minute it goes into agenda driven behavior, trying to get something and be covert about it, it stinks. You know, it's like, okay, here's the thing. I just did a podcast called Soft White Underbelly. 7 million subscribers, right? It was a great opportunity. And I said to a guy who's helping me market myself, I said to him, should I respond to every single comment and give them a link to my book? So they can buy my book on Amazon. And he said, yeah, but what about answering every single one authentically and really sharing and connecting with them? So it was just, I did. And then I put the link on the bottom, join my tribe, hang out with me some more. Go to my Facebook, buy my book if you want. But it was coming from, I didn't feel slimy. You know, I didn't feel slimy doing that. I like if they left a comment, she was a really good interview, have her back. I go, oh, thank you so much. And maybe something else about what they said, just a couple sentences, but it's them, me responding to them, responding to me. You know what I mean? It's human. It's not, get this. I'm trying to get rich and famous quick. Hurry up. You know, you go out in the world and there's too many people. It's like, who can scream the loudest about what they're selling? It's gross.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to make those people wrong because they're trying to find their way. How do they do? You know, and if you watch all the young men podcasts, you know, the young men podcasts where they all talk about Diary of a CEO and how you're supposed to have creatine. And there's the other guy who wants to live forever. What's his name? And
Yeah.
these,
Yeah.
yeah, and these guys are powerhouse. They're all about personal development and Jordan Peterson and this and that. And it's like, oh, can I just relax with you though? If we can relax together, then we might have fun. But and there's nothing wrong with it. Like the intentionality is great, personal growth is great, and all that stuff. So sorry, I'm going off on a
No,
tangent.
not at all.
But
I would
it's
think that
the
maybe
Alzheimer's.
absolutely. So I hope not. But
No.
I would say that the names that you said, those they've actually gotten to levels that there's something going on in between, right? It's not a straight out buy my thing here and there. They've developed it. I mean, there's no way that they got straight to that point just by being so direct about their goals. Or maybe I'm wrong. But either way,
They're compelling as hell. They're
right?
really compelling. You know, I went out and bought some creatine after seeing it on one of their
Yes.
podcasts. I got to try that
And
creatine.
and did you have any effects?
I'm
No.
not noticing anything, but
You
who
didn't take
knows?
enough.
Yeah, I'm 20 milligrams a day,
Oh,
but
you took 20 milligrams and you don't know? No, for so well, you gotta work out. I mean, you're doing yoga,
yeah,
it's gonna
I'm
have an
working
effect.
out too. So I'm a 77. I mean,
Yeah.
how old am I? I'm a 66-year-old woman, so that's pretty good.
I don't know if it's the creatine, but it's definitely working. So Vanda, are you ready to enter the multiverse?
What's that?
The multiverse? It's where
Yeah.
everything exists all at once in the infinite plane.
Oh, well, at least if I get pulled over for speeding, I have a excuse for it, right? I can tell the officer that I don't subscribe to a Newtonian brand of
Oh.
physics, that I'm much more non-Newtonian, where in fact my car doesn't exist if you get a big enough microscope. My hand doesn't exist if you look at it under a big enough microscope. So I think the multiverse is there is Yes, there is Vanda doing 85 and a 55, but there's also Vanda doing 55 and an 85, and the speed of light Vanda and the perfectly still Vanda, infinite Vanda potentials, officer. And you collapsed the wave function on the wrong Vanda. You were in the
Mm.
wrong so yeah, I'm ready for that.
All right. There it is. All right. So board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. So you have to choose an avatar. So if comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist avatar, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist avatar, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
My God, that's such a good question. I didn't even read that. That's awesome. Um, the first one, I like the first one. You know, I, I'm not great at craft punchlines. I'm great at bigger ideas. If you get in a
Okay.
writer's room with a bunch of writers, they all have their strengths. I like
Hmm.
tone. I like context. I like to explore the idea and pull back, get meta a little bit, and then go,
Yeah.
why are you, why that? Why that? I like to go there with it instead of, I have friends, Leah Krinsky, brilliant comedian. She's won an Emmy, couple Emmys for writing on Dennis Miller's show. She was like boom, 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 punchline goddess,
Hmm.
and not me. I was always pulling back. Why's that? What do you think of that? What's and so nuance, tone. Yeah, probably that one.
All right. So then does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
Uh, you know, that's one of those depends on the bit, depends on the moment, depends on the audience, depends on
Sure.
I I love voices. I do a lot
Hmm.
of them. Um, and and as a writer, you always go for the color and for the texture and for the sound and for so you go for that stuff as a writer. And you train yourself to do that over the years. But
Hmm.
I don't I don't do mouth noises into the microphone or anything like that.
No
You know what mouth?
ASMR? Yeah,
Huh?
ASMR.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No, I got the wrong
I
mic
my
for it.
It's like a boy thing to go like they do.
Oh,
That's an
okay, got it.
explosion.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, the explosion sounds. Now we got the
Yeah,
noise
but
canceling, so that's not going to
but
work.
it's like what does the bit demand? The bit has a soul, right? The bit demands something. I used to do an impression of an old lady who was my biggest fear, that I would
Mm,
become one of those old ladies who thinks of herself as sexy way past her prime, and she smokes like this and her voice has to
mm,
be a little
hmm.
bit like this. And it's like my gorgeous vocal cords. You're attracted to me, aren't I a looker? I'm a looker. I was a hooker. So yeah, she has to. You have to have her like that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that one has to be New York. Forget about it.
If you can do it, you definitely got to do it. All right. So,
Yeah.
Vanda, here in the Comedians and Elevators podcast, we have a tradition where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. And the previous guest was Zarek Tomar. And his question for you, Vanda, is what is the most important What is more important when it comes to highlighting problems of the world? Is it injustice or is it the challenges?
Can you say that one more time? That's a tough one. What's more important when it comes to highlighting the problems of the world? Is
Yes.
it injustice?
Or is it the challenges?
Hmm. Um, I personally have kind of an ethos about not criticizing. Here's what my ethos: criticize nothing, create compelling alternatives. So if
Mhm.
I find myself too snarky, ranting, like a victim, like I hate this.
Mm,
One of the things that grates at me the most is getting on, trying to get someone from Verizon on the phone,
mm.
right? And you're talking to a little girl in the Philippines. Well, no, you're lucky if you're talking to her. Before that, you're talking to a robot you're talking to a computer about a computer, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I
And
mean that's the future for sure, at
yeah, but
least.
because I'm old and I'm 66, so I remember when companies cared about customer service and weren't trying to structure their company so that their staff was
Hmm.
as shitty as possible. Can I curse on here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
So,
think their implications, the robots are going to get better, obviously, right? No.
well, there's that. That's what they say. But and at the same time, there's nothing like intention. Like we said, walk into a store. If a company sits down and says, "What kind of experience do we want our customers to have?" My ex-boyfriend is a business coach, so he's all about companies that actually care,
Hmm.
and so it will make them remarkable if it doesn't just have that structure where it's pushing off as much expense onto the little guy and getting the CEO wealthier,
Hmm.
right? I'm talking to this girl in the Philippines saying, "Do you know if your CEO has a yacht? Does he have a yacht? How much do you make an hour?" Like I'm like, "Do you realize that it never was that way where the worker made, like $10 an hour and the CEO made more. He made like 40 times more. Now they
Hmm.
make hundreds and thousands of times more,
Yeah.
It's crazy what CEOs make against what their people make. And that structure, of course, it's out of control because this consumer society, and then they're going to die and go, "Oh, I was at the trough.
Yeah.
I was a rich guy. I polluted the planet and made people's lives miserable."
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, can you tell? Okay, so that's me ranting. There's my little. That gets me. I hate it that I have to go into the supermarket and choose between a poor person's chicken or a good organic chicken that was raised happily. I
Yeah.
have to choose between shit food and good food. It was never that way. It was never that way. And we only get
Mm.
what we tolerate. The 1% is rich because they get it from us.
Right.
That's where they get the
Pretty
money.
pretty
Anyway,
sure that's about to change, right? So, all right. So, last question, legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics Type 5 survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
say the first one yet? That's an interesting question. What was the first
The
explanation? The
the
comics?
comics Type 5.
Oh, or
Comedian's cultural point of view.
Type five. That in and of itself is not potent. What's potent is who they were. What's potent when Bill Gates throws money at a problem, you're not going to remember him. When Gandhi says out of Africa or I am, passively resisting you, we remember Gandhi. We remember his heart. We remember his commitment. Same with comedians. Martin Luther King, we remember his heart. We remember his dream that he kept speaking into existence. When he got up there, he spoke it. So it was who he was,
Absolutely.
the force. Because we can either be forces of nature or sniveling little complainers. We have a choice, right? And
Yeah, we
um,
do.
and that's what people resonate with. That's what they love is some triumph over your victimy human, you know, who's stuck in this, mad dash to survive well. Got a rat race, beat the other guy. That whole structure is like if you can be generous in all situations, and that's my goal right now is being generous all the time, and
Awesome.
yeah. So I hope that
Awesome.
answered that.
It does. It does, Vanda. Well, Vanda, where can everybody find you online?
Well, I'm on Substack. I do a regular Substack. Because I'm old, I do Facebook, and I'm just now learning Insta and LinkedIn and stuff. But the most important thing that I'm trying to get people to look at is make me a rich and famous writer because I have That's my retirement. How do I make that visible?
There's no right way to do it.
Oh,
There
there
you go.
isn't. Okay. Tap
It's like my
Dancing
hat.
for Daddy is the name of my book. It's on Amazon right now. I'm going to try to get it over onto a website, which is, don't go to my website. It's vandamikoloski.com, but it's not nothing right yet, but I'm working on that.
It's not nothing,
Anyway.
which makes it something, right? So, so awesome. Well, Vanda, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everyone, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
Woo! Thank you.
If you're interested in too much information like in the network state or Mantipus the chicken shit, check out this video. Or is it this one right here? Well, either way. Lizard.